He didn't cry on the course. He is the kind of man who has spent a career making sure that certain things stay inside. The grief, the doubt, the weight of years carrying expectations that got heavier every time he almost met them and didn't quite. He has learned, through practice if not instinct, to keep the face still, to keep the walk steady, to answer the media's questions with the composed, measured language of someone who has rehearsed the distance between what he feels and what he shows. None of that preparation helped him today. What happened on the 15th hole, in the middle of a final round that he had been winning, and then not winning, and then surviving by the thinnest possible margin of nerve, bypassed all of it. Bypassed the rehearsed composure and the steady walk and the years of learning to keep the face still. It went directly to the thing underneath all of that. The real thing. The thing that was always there and that this sport, in its particular and merciless way, had finally reached down and touched. The gallery saw it happen before he did. That is how these moments tend to work. The people watching from the outside can see the surface break a fraction of a second before the person living it registers the fracture. And when the gallery at 15 saw it, when they understood what they were watching, they responded with the only thing that felt appropriate. Silence. Not the silence of uncertainty. The silence of witnesses. And what came after the silence is why we're here. His career has been one of the PGA Tour's most persistent and quietly agonizing stories. Not because it contains failure in any obvious sense, but because it contains so much excellence that the gaps become visible by contrast. He is, by every objective measurement, one of the best ball strikers of his generation. His iron play, specifically, has been described by coaches who have analyzed it with the cold precision of technique as nearly textbook. Nearly. The one qualifier that shadows everything. He has contended in 4 majors. He has not won one. He has finished in the top 5 of tour events 17 times in the past 6 seasons. He has converted 4 of them into victories. Good victories, legitimate ones. While the other 13 have become a collection that people who follow golf closely reference in conversations about what separates very good players from great ones. As if the answer were purely psychological. As if the gap between 17 and 4 could be explained by something as simple as nerve. He would disagree. Politely, carefully, with the specific patience of a man who has been asked some version of this question for 6 years. He would say that golf is more complicated than that the courses change and the conditions change, and sometimes a player in the top 5 finishes in the top 5 because the winner simply played better, and that is not a character flaw. It is a sport. He would say all of that, and it would be true. And somewhere underneath the truth of it would be the other thing. The thing he doesn't say in press conferences, which is that he knows. He knows the 13. He knows them by course and by round and by specific hole and by specific club, in the particular detailed way that a person knows the things they have replayed in the dark. He came into this week carrying all 13 of them, as he always does, as every serious competitor carries their collection of almost. Not as excuses, as education, as the thing that makes the preparation sharper and the execution more deliberate, and the Sunday afternoon just slightly heavier than it would otherwise be. His wife was in the gallery today. She is always in the gallery for the final rounds of events where he is in contention. She has stood at rope lines in 14 countries and watched him play through every version of what a final round can produce. The comfortable wins, the painful losses, the rounds that required everything and gave nothing back. She knows, she has said, when it's going to be a hard day from the way he walks to the first tee. Today, she told a friend standing beside her at the second hole, "It's going to be a hard day." The first 7 holes of his final round were, by any reasonable standard, excellent. Birdies on 2 and 5. Pars everywhere else. Executed with the clean efficiency of a player who is in his game and trusts it. He was 2 shots clear of the field through 7. Playing with the particular freedom that comes when a plan is working and the body is following the mind without argument. 8 was the first sign. A tee shot that leaked marginally right. Not disastrously, just marginally. Into a lie that compressed his options on the approach. He took the conservative play, made his bogey without drama, and walked to 9 with the expression of a player who has acknowledged an error, filed it, and moved on. Which is textbook. Which is professional. Which is also, when you are carrying 13 almost wins into a Sunday with a 2-shot lead that has just become 1, a thing that requires more from you than it looks like from the outside. 9 through 11, 3 pars. The one-shot lead held. The field behind him was not collapsing, which meant he could not afford to. He was being required to earn every hole, which is the specific demand of a final round leaderboard that has decided not to make things easy. 12 was where the round changed its character. A birdie chance from 14 feet that burned the left edge and stayed out. One of those misses that lands with more weight than a miss of its technical difficulty should, because every near miss carries an echo of the 13 behind it, and the echoes accumulate. He stared at the hole for 1 second. 2. His caddy said nothing. Then he retrieved his ball, and they walked to 13. 13 produced a bogey. A genuinely unfortunate one. A perfect approach that caught a spike mark and deflected, leaving him a putt with an unpredictable break that he misread by the narrowest margin. Bad luck. Objectively, clearly, unmistakably bad luck. But bad luck on a Sunday, with a lead that has become level, in the context of a career that is already fluent in the language of near misses, does not arrive in the body as simply bad luck. It arrives as something heavier. Something that asks a question the rational mind knows is unfair, but cannot stop hearing. Is this the pattern? Again? Are we here again? He was tied for the lead with 5 holes left. And the thing his wife had read in his walk on the second tee was now visible, if you were watching carefully, to anyone. 14 was a par. Hard-earned, slightly scraped. The par of a player who is drawing on reserves he doesn't like to acknowledge he needs. His ball striking remained impeccable. The technique his coaches describe as nearly textbook still present, still reliable. The body doing what the body has been trained to do over thousands of hours. But there was something around the technique now. A tightness at the margins. The way you can hear a musician playing all the right notes and still sense that something beyond the notes is costing them. He stood on the 15th tee with 4 holes remaining and a share of the lead and the specific knowledge, available to any professional athlete who has been in this position and knows the arithmetic of their own history, that the next 90 minutes would either become number 14 or become the 14 again with a different final number. 18 near wins. Another conversation about the gap. The tee shot on 15 was exactly where he wanted it. The approach, he would later describe it as one of the better iron shots he had hit all week, and he hits a great many good iron shots in a week, settled pin high, 8 feet left of the hole. The gallery received it with the warm, appreciative murmur of people who recognize quality. He walked to the green, read the putt, set up, and then, in the 3 seconds before he pulled the putter back, something happened that had nothing to do with the mechanics of a golf shot. His hands shook, not dramatically, not visibly to someone standing 20 yards away. But the camera at 15 was close. The broadcast had moved it there in the last hour because the story had demanded closer attention, and it caught what the naked eye from the gallery could not, a tremor. Small, brief. The body surfacing something that the mind had been working hard to keep submerged. He stepped away from the ball. He turned, slightly, away from the cameras, away from his caddy, away from the gallery, toward the space behind the green where there was nothing but grass in the middle distance. And he stood there, for what the broadcast would time at 11 seconds and what felt, to the people watching, considerably longer, in the particular posture of a person who is not composing themselves, who is, instead, allowing something. The gallery understood before the broadcasters found the words. They went quiet. Not the managed hush of a backswing. The other kind. The kind that is an act of respect. The recognition that something private was happening in a public space, and that the appropriate response was to make the space as private as several thousand people standing in an open field could make it. His wife, at the rope line on the left side of the green, did not move, did not speak, looked at her husband's back and understood everything. He turned back to the ball. And the person who addressed that putt was not the same person who had stepped away from it 11 seconds earlier. Not because the thing he had been carrying was gone. It wasn't. It isn't. It doesn't work that way. But because he had stopped trying to pretend it wasn't there. Because the 11 seconds had been, in the language that bodies use before minds catch up, a permission. Permission to feel the weight of it. Permission to put it down, not permanently, but long enough to make a golf stroke without it in his hands. The putt was 8 feet. Left edge. 1 cup of break. He made it. The gallery's silence broke, but not immediately, and not into the sound you'd expect from a birdie putt on a final round leaderboard. It broke into something more complicated. Something that started as a release and became a roar and had, woven through it, The particular emotional texture of people who had just watched someone do something that went beyond making a putt. He had put the hands in the air. He had pointed at the sky, the specific gesture of someone expressing something toward a direction rather than a person, which is the most honest kind of celebration because it isn't performed for anyone present. And his face, the face that had been still and composed and carefully managed for 17 holes of a career's worth of Sunday afternoons, was doing everything it had been trained not to do. His caddy reached him and said something close to his ear that nobody heard. His wife's hand went to her mouth at the rope line. And in the broadcast booth, one of the commentators, a former tour player of 20 years standing who has the professional discipline of someone who has described hundreds of moments from the elevated distance of a television studio, said nothing for 4 full seconds before he said, very quietly, "There it is. That's what it looks like." 16, birdie. The first hole after 15 played with the looseness of a man who has stopped managing something and started trusting something. The driver left the face with a different sound than the previous 2 hours had produced, the sound of release, not caution. 17. Par, with a sand save that the gallery cheered with the intensity usually reserved for birdies, because context transforms what a par means, and everyone present understood the context. 18. He stood on the tee with a one-shot lead and 400 yards between him and the answer to 13 years of the question. He hit the driver and did not watch it land. He already knew where it was going. He won with a par. A 2-putt par from 30 feet that he rolled with the unhurried certainty of a man who had already, 2 holes ago, made the putt that mattered. The final putt was a formality. The final putt was the period at the end of a sentence whose meaning had been established on 15. The trophy ceremony was brief and warm and slightly tearful, the way these things are when the weight of the achieving is visible to everyone present. His wife came from the gallery. His caddy stood to the left, wearing the expression of a person who has worked very hard for something and is now watching it arrive and finds that the arrival is exactly as significant as they believed it would be. In the media area, the first question was about 15, about the step back, about the 11 seconds. He didn't deflect it. He usually deflects the questions that reach toward the interior, toward the gap between what he feels and what he shows, because that has been the system, and the system has been protective. But today the system felt less necessary. Today something had been seen that couldn't be unseen, and the pretense of composure on the other side of it would have felt not professional but dishonest. "I've been standing over putts like that one for a long time," he said. "And for a long time I've been telling myself to stay in the process, trust the read, execute the stroke. Which is correct, which is what you're supposed to do. But today, standing over that putt, I realized I'd been leaving something out. I'd been executing without letting myself feel what I was executing for." A reporter asked what that meant, practically. "It means I stepped away because I needed a second to remember why it mattered. Not to calm down, to let it matter. Because I think I'd been so focused on not letting the weight of it hurt me that I'd also stopped letting it mean anything. And that's not a way to make a putt. That's just a way to survive a putt. And surviving it wasn't what I came here to do." The room was still for a moment after that. Not because it was surprising, but because it was accurate. And because accuracy, spoken plainly, in a room full of people who recognize the thing being described from their own lives, from their own versions of the 13 almosts, in whatever form those take outside the context of professional golf, lands with a specific weight. Letting it matter. Not as a liability. As a fuel. Not surviving it. Doing it. The gallery that went speechless on 15 had understood something before he did. They had seen the break before he felt it. They had witnessed, from the outside, the exact moment when a person stops protecting themselves from the significance of what they're attempting and steps into it fully. Hands shaking, face open, weight of 13 years present and acknowledged and no longer hidden. And they had gone quiet. Because some things, when they happen in front of you, make you want to be a better witness than you usually are. Today on the PGA Tour, thousands of fans stood at those ropes and were exactly that.